Hello, Kelly.
Hi,
I
James.
didn't hear anything. Did you hear the
I
opening of the?
did. It was
Okay,
da da
good.
da 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 da, and then
I didn't hear.
hello.
I didn't hear a thing. So maybe it's Mercury retrograde, and my iPad is not acting up right. But hello, everybody, and welcome to Life After Death and Beyond. I'm James Van Praagh and Kellee White, my dear friend. I
Hi,
don't know.
everybody. Hi,
I feel like
James.
we're just soulmates.
Well, we're wearing the same color. We did a
Again.
something this morning, and we were both wearing the same color, and then we changed, and then we both came back with the same color again. Two times in one day. How do we do it?
I don't know. I don't know how. We just let ourselves be. That's all.
Oh, James, have these been strange energies?
Since I came back from Europe, it's only been a week, so I keep on bringing my mind back to that space I was in because it was just so perfect and just beautiful, and I don't forget it. So I have a lot of photos to remind me, and it's a tough time right now. It's an intense energy, right? But I
Yes,
say it's an
very.
intense, and
Mhm.
it's a strange, surprising energy. Would that be what you're experiencing?
Oh, so much. And I'll tell you what else
Yeah.
it really having learning about from different people of great loss, sudden great loss.
You
Had a
mentioned that,
lot of
Kelly.
that.
You mentioned that months ago. You said this will be a
Mhm.
time of great loss. There'll be, and I think I mentioned all the waves of souls will leave. It's a time. You talk the
Yeah.
eclipse season. It's
Yep.
time for souls to leave. And you said, I almost say verbatim, it'll be a time for quick, surprising endings, and they're gonna go, and it's gonna be shocking. I think
Yes.
that's what you
You
said.
got it.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what you said, and it's happening. It's
It
happening.
is.
And when is this eclipse season ending, Kelly?
About mid-April.
Okay, so we still have a little
Yeah.
bit to go.
It's
There'll be
two
more
weeks after.
shocks, more
Yes.
surprises and
Oh,
shocks, I think, coming.
you betcha. And then we're going to be doing a prediction show in early April.
Yes, our favorite, and everybody loves our prediction shows, and we've been pretty right on. I gotta say
Yeah.
that the people we don't even know. We just give it out, and we have some that people that work with us here that help us and tell us,
Yeah.
your predictions were kind of spot on. Like, okay, we don't remember what we give, but we just give it out, and that's it.
We
And
do.
and
Oh,
tonight we have a guest. We've had it's our third time with this guest, right? Is that correct, Kelly?
yeah.
And we've had such a great response, and it's such an interesting topic that we had to bring her back. And
Yeah.
she's such an incredible, lovely healer and
We
intuitive instructor. So, Kelly, would you like to
Yeah, let me
back?
just tell you a little bit about our guest, Karie Gonia. She's a dear friend of ours, dear friend. She's a spiritual intuitive, a healer, a guide specializing in family constellation therapy, or FCT. It's ancestral healing. She does trauma recovery and personal transformation. As a Reiki master, and a shamanic practitioner and an FCT facilitator. She helps individuals break free from generational trauma and emotional blocks while guiding them towards profound healing and self discovery. So please welcome Karie Gonia.
Hi,
Hi.
Hi,
Carrie. Welcome, welcome,
Karie.
welcome,
I'm so
welcome,
happy
welcome.
to be back with you guys. You guys are my favorite.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you for
so
having
glad
me.
you're here today
Welcome.
with
And I'm
us.
sure right now you're very, very busy.
Very, very busy. I
Right.
I feel like the world's imploding a little and people are freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
Yeah.
I
think
think
that's
when
true.
people start to freak out, they, tend to want to get some help in kind of unique ways. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that you do is just so unique. I'm so fascinated by your work, Karie. And I have followed you for a long time, and we've been friends for a very long time. And you've helped me and my family with the work. And I'm excited, James, for you to have a
I'm
session
having a
with
session this
Karie.
Friday, which I've really wanted for a long time. We just haven't done it, so we're going to this Friday. So thank you, Carrie. And Carrie, explain to people that are watching maybe the first time exactly what you do, your type of work. I mean, besides being an incredible healer in so many levels, the exact that discipline that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can tell by my bio that nothing was working for me, and I kept trying modality after modality, and when I was in my probably mid-30s, family constellation therapy kind of found me, and after my first session, everything in my life made sense. So, family constellation therapy is a type of energy healing that kind of blends traditional psychotherapy and energetic fields. So it's predominantly done in big groups of people. And so the practitioner would open up what is called a morphogenic field. The field is really beautiful. It's my most favorite part. The field is called the knowing field. So the field
The
holds
knowing field.
the knowing field.
I never
So,
heard that before, but I've recently describing something as a knowing field, and then here you are saying that.
oh, I
The
love You're
the
preparing for your
knowing.
session already.
I did the knowing field. Okay, is that around everyone, or is that a thing, or the knowing
Yes.
field?
So the knowing field is the soul's consciousness of your entire family system from start to finish. So the field holds all of the stories, the traumas, the wisdom. So if you were doing it in a big group of people, James, you would sit on the sidelines with me and someone would step in. We could put Kellee in to represent your mom, your dad, your brother. So Kellee would stand in the knowing field and then would kind of get downloaded, so to speak. So oftentimes people have a felt sense in their body of a trauma that happened however many generations ago. So one-on-one sessions are a little bit different. When people used to see me in LA in person, I had all these different, that's what Kellee did. I had all these different foam footprints and people would stand on the footprints and feel the trauma, the energy of the family system. So that's part one. And then part two, in order to clear the trauma, they call them healing statements or truth statements. I just close my eyes, I tap on my chest, I channel your ancestors. They give me short, choppy little sentences to say, and then the clients repeat after me. So I always tell people that's when the ozone kinks and everything kind of comes up and out. But it's a really beautiful, modality.
And when you say ancestors, you're channeling ancestors. I'm going to be like the dumb person here. Would it be people think like relatives of theirs? Would it be guides of theirs? Would it be a guide of their soul group or their family soul group? Or would it be all of that?
It would be all of that. Most of the
Okay.
time it's their ancestors. Most of the time it's their family of origin, depending on what they were working on. Like Kellee, I've had the pleasure of doing so many constellations for Kellee, so I could put in like guides or soul family. But with somebody just coming kind of off the bat, I would stick to like mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, that kind of thing.
I think you usually go back 3 generations when you're doing a constellation.
Yeah, typically 3 to 4. I mean, most people, honestly, most people don't know really past their grandparents. Sometimes people will know their great grandparent line, but it's rare for them to know past 3 generations.
James, I had a really wild experience with Carrie the very first time, and it was in your person in your office in Pasadena at the time. And it was really extraordinary because I knew nothing about what I was going to happen. I had nothing I didn't know anything about family constellation really, other than Dr. Shirley said, Kellee, you have to have this session. So I went to have the session, and she has you stand on the different pads that you're standing, different feet. And I had no idea, but as I was standing on one of them, I felt a smack in my back, like a giant hit in my back. And it threw me over to the side of the wall, actually threw me.
Yeah.
And what it was a great uncle, not my grandfather, my grandfather's brother, who actually had killed a Cossack in the war trying to leave. And who knew that my family was carrying these burdens with us? I mean, in fact, so when I love the idea of like, do our ancestors haunt us? In a sense, can you explain that? Because in a sense, their energy is still present.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can speak to this personally. I grew up with my paternal side of the family. I knew very little of my maternal side. My mom's mother was killed tragically when she was like 43. And I always tell people she was the ghost of our family. My mom was only 25 when she lost her mom. It was a really sad situation, but I, being little, obviously didn't know any of the details. I would dream of her. I would feel her. When FCT finally found me, my very first constellation, I had gone to every therapist, every shaman, every healer, and I kept telling them, I feel trapped in somebody else's situation, somebody else's body. And they were just like, oh, you're crazy. In my first constellation, I stood on one of the papers because my lady was in New York. So I just was standing on paper in my living room. And I literally put the phone down, was like, can you hold on? Put the phone down and mimed unzipping a suit and was like, this is how I have felt my whole life. And it was my grandmother.
Wow.
So we really can, in very deep unconscious ways, take on the trauma of those who came before.
And can you give us some examples of that? Would suicide be one if that runs in a family system?
Yeah, suicide, war, genocide, slavery, domestic violence, child abuse, addiction is really prevalent in family systems. It's rare for me to work with somebody that doesn't have addiction somewhere in the family system.
You know, we had a guest on last week, Carrie, who had some. She was incredible. She was just incredible, and she spoke about a situation which I thought was fascinating. I was wanted to hear your take on it, if you've ever heard of this. She said in the embryo, when the soul was forming, when the baby was forming, if you will, that in the Kelly, was the bottom of the egg, I guess, all the
Yeah.
ancestral information
Yeah.
there. And then when you're born, that auric field, that information goes to the top of the auric field, and you're living that
Wow.
ancestral information. I'm like, that sounds pretty
From
cool.
the egg.
From
Wow.
the egg,
Yeah.
from the egg. Have you heard of something
I
like that?
mean, that makes sense to me. I feel like this, I mean, you guys know this, but I feel like the science has caught up to the spiritual. So when our moms are in, in utero with our grandmothers, we have all the eggs that we'll ever have in our lifetime.
It's
So we're
true.
already in there. So we
That
are
is true.
deeply, deeply connected to that mother grandmother
That is
energy.
true. When you think about
Yeah.
that, all the
Yeah.
eggs, that is very true.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I have never heard that before, but it really resonates.
It felt right. Yeah, it felt
Yeah.
right. And you know, it's very interesting. My brother, as you know, just passed recently, and
Mm.
I had a connection with him like I don't know 2 weeks ago when I was getting massage, and I had this wonderful. I surrender, and all of a sudden I get a lot of messages like left and right. And it was really interesting. And he came through, and I asked him about the relatives, and I could feel that he was in that knowing space, right? That
Yeah.
center of
That's the
knowing.
word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing, and I said, well, how, a grandmother, a mother, and it was this feeling of so much more than what you thought they were. And he said, well, they're fine, and this one is this one. And then he said, yes, I said, is that the same way that you remember them? He goes, well, when you go over here, you see the traits that they have shared with you.
Um,
So in this physical life, you take on some of their traits, and get to recognize their traits when you come over here. So that has
wow.
to, I guess, go with what you're.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
do you carry on various traits or traumas
Yeah.
or addictions to heal not only yourself but that soul group of the family? Then do you tend to take on those harder things to heal that family situation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in my work specifically, and I'm, looking at a very niche kind of subsect of it, but most of the time we just take it on out of love and loyalty. How will mom recognize me if I'm fully functioning, if I'm thriving, if, mom has addiction? So that's how I'll see the patterns repeating. So like in the case of me not knowing really anything about my grandmother and nobody ever talked about her, I learned a lot about her through this work. And then I would call my mom after and be like, hey, your mom said XYZ. And my mom would get really freaked out and be like, how did you know that? So I feel like I really learned about my grandmother and her story through this work. But I carried so much for her as a way to, stay bonded to my mom too.
Can family constellation help us break old patterns with family members?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, I know I was kind of joking of like my bio, but I just kept having patterns follow me around that did not physically make sense. I got into therapy when I was in my 20s. I was working with a shaman by the time I was 23, which back in the 90s and the 2000s,
Yeah,
that wasn't a thing. Wasn't,
exactly.
yeah. Like I knew of James when I was young. Like,
Yeah.
thank you
Right.
for everything you did to open the
Yeah.
door for all of us. But it's
Sure.
like it
True.
it was it was
They
not a
very
thing
rare,
back
very
then.
unique. You were weird.
Yeah.
You're a weirdo if you believed
I
anything like that. Sure.
super
Yeah.
weird
Sure.
child. And
Yeah.
Kelly knows this. I was obsessed with families. Like I was the kid
Yeah.
that would not shut up about family systems as like a little one. So yeah, but you can absolutely I don't think we're here to suffer. So I think you can clear kind of depending on what your soul contract is. I've seen people clear so much using FCT.
And
I,
Carrie, I had a situation once, and it was a reading. And I don't, I'm not sure I talked about this in my first interview with our first interview with you, but there was a lady and a husband, a mother and father, and their son had passed away. And he came through. He was hit by a drunk driver and killed. The drunk
Mm,
driver survived. And there was a whole thing about forgiveness. And the son came through and said, "Mom, you need to forgive him. I've forgiven him," and she refused to. And the son came through and said, "You have to forgive him. If you don't, it's going to affect not only you but everyone coming after you in our family."
yeah.
So you've heard of this, and can it then be maybe it's forgiveness from generations before? Can someone now forgive and really heal those generations before as well? Forgiveness, for
Abs-
instance.
Absolutely. So my grandmother was killed accidentally from a semi driver hit her
Ah,
when she was walking. And so I did a constellation and I put him in the field. And in my work, they call him victim perpetrator. he and my grandmother were standing side by side, and like I couldn't clear that energy until I did some healing statements around it was not intentional, our family forgives you, whatever those healing statements were. So yeah, and it's hard for people.
Because we're all connected as one big field, if you will. And I love you talk about fields, like field of knowing. Are there many different types of fields besides field of knowing? Maybe there are all different types of field. I'm just
Yeah,
saying this because just is that possible? Different types of
I
fields and
I think so. I mean, I feel like we're figuring out so much now just in
yeah.
terms of the quantum
Yeah.
space. So
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people are more open now to different
Yeah.
forms of healing than they ever were before. And, we didn't even talk about trauma until about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, now we're talking about trauma and different ways to do trauma. So I get a lot of this. I was just going to say, Lisa Tonini asks, how does it work if you are adopted and you don't know
Yes, that's
past family
interesting.
trauma? Great
Yeah, that's
question.
And that question also comes in is, I have it a lot with adopted. Did they, am I, was I bad? Is it a punishment?
Right.
I mean, all of that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Lisa. I work on adoption a lot, and you don't actually, quote unquote, need to know anything. So that's the beauty of the knowing field. We could put Lisa or Lisa's family in the knowing field with adoption. In my work, they call it aspect work, where I can put in not a person. I could put in money, I could put in adoption, and we could read the energy that way. So I work in adoption a lot, and a lot of times people don't know anything because there was a lot of closed adoptions back in the day.
Yeah.
But the field will tell you where it's stuck.
So are you telling us that if there are family secrets, the field will release the secrets?
The field will release the secrets. I always tease people. I'm like, if you have the courage to do family constellation therapy, like it'll change your life. But it's
true.
It's not the funnest process because my brain just works in pictures. So I always tell people it unkinks those hoses and everything kind of comes up and out, the good and the not so good. So there was a lot of secrets back then, which is really what I have found, just grief, you know?
Yeah.
And Carrie, there are certain things that are not allowed to be shown?
Good question.
That's a great question. I haven't really experienced that. I find like if something isn't kind of ripe and ready to be worked on, I'll put it in the field and they just won't really have a response.
Interesting.
So yeah.
I found that in my work too, that certain things you'll ask spirit that say, we're not allowed to tell you, or that's not knowledgeable right now.
Yeah.
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 I found a lot.
Yeah.
And there's certain things we're not allowed to say.
So Renee asked a good question. She says, are we transmuting karma healing with FCT, or is it more of healing open soul contracts, lessons that were not finished?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I feel like it's probably both. I obviously had a soul contract with my family system to come and be the black sheep and to wake everybody up, so I think it can be a mixture of both.
Carrie, how do you handle with, there's a question here about living with a narcissistic child, but it doesn't have to be a child. It could be a narcissistic, just a narcissist partner, anything. How does that work in a family constellation session?
Yeah. Boundaries. I feel like even boundaries within the field when you're working with any type of personality disorder, obviously boundaries in the physical life as well. But sometimes when they're in the field, we will actually have to put in boundaries.
And what with the narcissist kind of, I don't know how to say this to you, on another level of consciousness, on unconscious level, would that soul get that sense of boundaries, if you will? I'm saying that they know on some level that there are boundaries in place.
Yeah, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but this happens to me quite a bit when I'm in the field. If a soul has quote unquote done something bad, oftentimes they'll kind of hang back a little bit. So it's almost like they will kind of respect the unconscious boundary, if you will.
That's funny. I've never discussed that with anybody, but that is exactly what
happens. Very true.
The soul hangs back, and you're like, why is that soul hanging back?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah.
There's some shame back there. I'd like to know. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Do we have soul lessons from family trauma history?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think absolutely yes, because that's the beauty of this work too. I've been really lucky. I've built a really powerful community, and so I've seen so many patterns over the years. So I think yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
gosh.
Wow. Wow.
I
And,
always tell people, look collectively what keeps kind of showing up within the family system,
and
you
those would be
know?
patterns. Yeah. Patterns.
Yeah.
And yeah. And wow. Wow. So if they didn't do family trauma therapy, if people didn't do that, what's the number one way they can heal traumas from your family ancestral line, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, I think a big part of it is being aware of it. Like I've been doing this work a very long time and before everybody kind of looked at me like I had two heads. And
Right.
then post COVID, we're having conversations now around intergenerational trauma. So I think collectively like people having conversations about it, having awareness around it will start to shift some of that energy.
Carrie, we talked about it just earlier, and Kelly, we talk about it all the time. But right now, in this hard times, and I think it's going to get harder on this earth.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to force people to go within. And I think, as we talked
Yeah.
about, it's seven planets and Pisces, Kelly, and that it's forcing people to go within because they can't look outside themselves anymore
Right.
because they're
Yeah.
not getting met. So it's going to force them to go within and start questioning themselves, their families, their traumas, boundaries, and so forth.
Yeah.
I think the three of us are going to be very busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Because people are going to
so.
start
Oh,
really discovering and exploring for
right.
sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
for sure.
agree.
Seven
Yeah.
planets in Pisces, it will force us to go inward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Laura Letterby asked a great question. She says, when you go through this type of therapy, does it just affect your family or does it affect the spouses too?
I'm so happy you asked that,
Me
Lori. This is
too.
one of my favorite parts. So it absolutely ripples out in your family
Yeah.
system. So I'm the only one in my family that has done any type of healing therapy, and it rippled through my family. So now cousins go to therapy, people that were struggling with addiction got sober, spouses, boyfriends, like it ripples through
So
the
it
family
moved
system.
some energetic blocks, maybe that they were so unaware of it, so unconscious. When you started to do this work, it opened up a lot of spaces for people to become conscious of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great
Wow.
way of saying it, Kelly, too. And moving energy, because that's really what you're
Hmm.
doing. You're moving that energy. You're separating it. You're giving it life. You're rippling it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And let me ask you this question, Carrie, if you could. Would you mind that? Can you heal traumas? This sounds really weird. Because there is no time. Can you perhaps try to, let's say you're healing some trauma from the family history dynamic in the past. What about future? Can you set up a pattern or just a space for healing in the future if possibilities come in that something needs to be healed? I know it sounds very
Yeah.
strange, but
Yeah, no, I love that question. I feel like my brain works like your brain. Like, because I always tell people when they're doing their homework, I'm like, think about what you want, be intentional with what you're stepping towards. So I feel like this work, because it just kind of catapults them forward, I feel like it makes them hyper aware of those future timelines and a future self. So I think you can. I don't necessarily set up.
the
Well, no,
future.
that's not true.
That's
Not
not
in
true
my
because you helped me with my book, Carrie, and you helped set a whole
Yeah.
thing up for my book to have energy to move forward.
Uh,
Any of the blocks that I
I,
had been doing?
I think you can set up that space. There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
reason why we couldn't probably because there is no time. And if our
Yeah.
intention is the future, or if you will, we call it future, but that what we want to manifest and we set up the stage, as it were, in a certain way, I would think that's possible.
I just don't use the field in like a predictive way. So yeah,
Yep,
Kelly
got it.
and Kelly, we
Yeah.
had it move in within 24 hours because Kelly texted me the next
I
morning
did.
and was like, "Holy shit, this like
Yeah.
this,
It
yeah,
was unbelievable.
Well,
yeah."
When you set up a family constellation for somebody, when somebody comes to see you, do they say, I want to work on this or I want to work on that? Or does this family constellation tell them what they're working on?
good question,
Both,
Kelly.
both.
Both.
Because sometimes people come and they have no idea what they want to work on, and so we do an intake process. I always tell people follow the pattern. So if something has been following you around 2 years or longer, something is stuck absolutely with mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. If there's like a new pattern that just showed up, typically that's kind of something within their soul contract. So sometimes people come and they have, I want to work on these 5 things. And sometimes people come and they have no idea. So I always acquiesce to like their ancestors telling me what to put in the field. Um, And again, most of the time, your first constellation, it's some version of like mom, dad trauma.
Okay.
I will be exploring anything when it comes to you. So
You're going to be amazed, James.
You're gonna love it.
You're going to be just amazed.
I've heard just
by
incredible stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, it's very freeing on so many levels.
Yeah.
It's very freeing. I mean, in my own family that was, quite dysfunctional. I was able, after I had 2 sessions with Carrie, it was after my mom died. And so this is why it's a great time for you, James, because your brother died, your sister died. It's a lot. You've lost a lot of people in the last couple of years, frankly.
18 months. Yeah.
And there's something about that when you work with Carrie, it just kind of lifts the energy and you feel lighter. And here's the best part about it. You feel clear, very clear. You can make really good choices because you're feeling less, you're just feeling less in pain, less emotional.
You're not holding on to things.
Not holding on to things. Yeah.
Also, Carrie, I want to say something to you, which I have to, and you brought this up a little bit, but I want to say thank you to you because also it's another way for people to start being aware and having a sense of themselves as a soul. And through your work, you're opening them up. So it might be they come for constellation therapy, but it opens the door up for many different types of healings for them to explore then, exploring their own self, their own spirituality, their own soul self. So good on you for doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a healer once tell me, like, you got the job because you're so stubborn. Like there was something in me that just kept going. And then when FCT found me, and it found me in a really bizarre way, it was like everything made sense. And then I just jumped in with both feet. I love it so much.
Isn't it funny when you find your passion, there's something about, or when you find what it is, whatever that is, and then it becomes a passion. And it makes everything make sense. Everything kind of just goes into that because you didn't have it easy. I mean, I remember you were very ill on top of everything, James. She was very ill. You were in the hospital a long time. Correct? Back in the day.
So I had a big corporate job. I was very much trying to fit into a normal world, and I just wasn't.
Oh no.
Deeply intuitive, deeply creative, but I thought that's what you had to do. That was my family system. It's like, no, you get a job and you work and you buy a house and you like fit in this way. And then when I was 30, I got a blood clot in my lung and almost died and had severe pneumonia and was sick for like 4 months. They had run every test. They were like, we think you might have lung cancer. I've never done drugs. I've never smoked. And then I finally resigned from my big girl job. And 4 days later it cleared up and I haven't been sick since. So,
wow.
But it was, I always credit him. I don't know his last name, but I had a ER doctor named Dr. Ian who literally climbed in bed with me the first time I had to go when they were like, oh, you're going to die. And he was like, what are you not doing? He's like, spiritually, creatively, what are you not doing? Because if you stay on this path, you will absolutely die. And so thank God I listened. It took me a few months, but I listened.
But just think of all the people that you heal through this work. I mean, as I go back to that, is because it continues on, you'll force people to ask their own spirit, their own soul, what should I be doing? What should I not be doing? What needs to be healed? How do I need to treat people? How should I live? I mean, you're helping that. So it's helping moving on forward and spreading that love, spreading that enlightenment.
And it's funny. I as a therapist also, I know how important therapy is, but there's something about family constellation therapy that takes it to another level. And I've always thought just plain therapy is not enough. And I think this is so important, that work that you do, Carrie. It brings such deep healing on so many levels to so many people here. I love what you do. Love your work.
I think because there's such a somatic piece. And for me, like I've had, and I don't say this with ego, but I had a bunch of therapists in my 20s and 30s that were like, you are outsmarting me. Like you're getting to the problem, like before I'm getting to the problem.
Right.
And which was frustrating because I was like, hey, I want to stop going in circles. And with FCT, I couldn't outsmart it. When they put me in the knowing field, I couldn't intuit it. I couldn't outsmart it. So I find that piece for people is really helpful, especially men. I work with men a lot, and the field it cracks you open.
Yeah,
that must be very interesting. So
fun.
Left brain people, I would think it must be really interesting to watch the reaction.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. People sometimes will make bets with me and be like, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to feel anything. And then they stand on the papers and they're like rocking and rolling and, have snot on their shirt. So that part can be fun.
Now, what do the papers actually do? I know they're footprints, right? And do you
Yeah.
program those papers ahead of time, or is it at the moment, or what exactly is that?
Yeah. So again, in groups, we would use people. And then if people like
Okay.
pre-pandemic, I was seeing people in person. So I had footprints. So now like Friday, James, you're just going to use paper since we'll be
Okay.
on Zoom.
I'm
And
a
so
writer. I have plenty.
I love it. So I don't actually open the field until right before we go into the constellation because I find that it can be a lot of energy for people.
So I
So
don't
I
need to
don't,
meditate beforehand to prepare ourselves. Okay.
nope. Yeah. So
But I will
I
say
tell,
this though, James, afterwards you might want to take a nap.
yeah,
You might
you'll
want to
be really
rest.
tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, don't
I have
plan to
nothing that
go out and do
afternoon.
anything.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
planning on doing anything that afternoon. I'm staying home actually. I travel the next day to Austin, but then I'm home. So
Oh my
I
gosh.
always tell people to drink water like a couple days before, eat a little extra protein, eat some
okay.
extra food because it makes you
Okay.
stupid hungry. Yeah.
Really?
So
Wow.
Yeah.
here's a
Okay.
question for you from Lori Counts. How does Carrie's work affect siblings who have crossed over?
Oh, that's interesting. And can you heal them on the other side also?
Yeah. I mean, I think so because
I think
I
so
mean,
for sure.
we put in deceased ancestors. So absolutely, you know,
I think
that's the
so.
beauty of this work is there's no time space kind of continuum. You can literally work on anything.
Well, I love the field of the term field of knowingness. That just validates what I've been picking up the past couple of
Yeah.
weeks, and that field of knowingness. I love
Yeah.
that
Yeah. I know.
because I
Because
think
too, there's so much wisdom. I mean, yes, all of us have family systems that have trauma, but there's so much wisdom too and so many gifts, you know.
my brother came through 2 weeks ago, and when I was talking about earlier, and he said to me, "I help you know things."
Oh, I love that.
And I love the simplicity of that, and it means a lot. I help you know things. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? And they do. I think
Yeah.
our ancestors, when they pass over, I think they do come back and help us, fill us up, and give us information that we may need, that we're not aware of, that can help us move forward. Maybe there's some regrets, and they do that to us. I really do feel they do that.
Well, they
Mhm.
also might be, which I really believe, helping the people here, maybe sending them to you, Carrie, or sending them to somebody like me or to you to get the work
Yeah.
done that they need.
Oh,
Because
100%, Kelly,
yeah,
100%. I mean,
yeah.
I definitely think that when I get people at my readings and my demonstrations that they've been sent there, I'll tell my students in a class, so, we're sitting here today because you were sent here. There's no coincidence
Yeah.
that you are meant to be here. I don't believe in accidents. I think the spirit people really help us and assist us to be where we have to be. I really do
I
believe that.
agree. I agree.
And I think
Yeah.
it's such a profound time for healing for so many on so many levels right now. And as we heal here, we are healing there as well.
That's
You
very
know?
good,
Yeah.
Kelly. Yes.
Yeah,
Very true.
And
So
and
true.
we're healing future generations.
absolutely.
My work is preventing it from going forward, which is
Yes.
True.
such a gift, such a gift,
Boy, is
you
that
know.
true? Is it true
Yeah.
that we carry 13 generations of trauma behind us?
Yeah,
13, James.
again,
Explain that, please.
yeah.
And explain that number 13. Couldn't it be 21 or 18 or why 13?
I know. I wonder why the scientists stopped at 13, 14. I
It just
typically
makes me
will hear it
curious.
like 13,
Tired.
14. I know, me
Makes
too.
They were like, I've had enough
yeah,
already.
Yeah. Well, I love this. I always tell this story. I heard a lot as a little kid, 70s, 80s of like our DNA, like it's in your DNA, like you just have to, it's in your DNA. And I remember like fighting adults as a little kid being like, I don't think that's true. And so when the study of epigenetics came out, I felt so vindicated. So they have finally figured out, the science has finally figured out that our genes are not hard coded like they thought. So trauma, generational trauma can express those genes on or off based on what's happening in your environment.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's how a lot of addiction, comes from suppressed grief or war trauma or genocide trauma, slavery trauma, that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't actually know why they stopped
We'll
at
go
13,
13.
14.
And really interesting because there are various factors that have to be present in a lifetime, I guess, for certain souls to go to an addiction or go for a certain choice or do this. There are certain factors. I think as souls we come back and there are choices we make, and there are all these different factors that are involved. And what triggers
Yeah.
it, right? What triggers a certain
Yeah.
choice or triggers a certain thing to happen? I think there's so many
Yeah.
different factors involved, and it can, of course, ancestral. Interesting question. And Carrie, forgive me for not asking it correctly because I don't know what I'm going to say. But so if we believe then that there's other star systems or galaxies and so forth, do you? I know it's such a weird thing. I don't know if you can answer it. Is there a way of healing not only ancestral, ways from the past, but other? Let's say we're involved in other galaxies or star systems. I know it sounds so weird. Can you heal that or get more enlightenment about that systems, or
Yeah.
have you heard anything about other star systems or galaxies, or if someone's
Yeah.
made up their how to say it in a way that people are alien ways, maybe there's some DNA in their foreign, you know what I mean, Kelly, like
Yeah.
I do. I love this question.
Me too. I love this.
I'm
you know what
right
I'm
there with
asking,
you.
but I do believe that, and maybe because I hung out with Janelle in France and Madrid, who's very alien, that maybe many of us and many doing this work are light beings or even have DNA of other worlds, other star systems. Can we then heal in these family constellation therapy, maybe some other types of systems, star systems, or DNA of other cultures or ways? That sounds weird.
Yeah.
Have you heard
No,
anything?
I've actually done it. So
Okay,
There
tell
you
me
go.
more. Thank
yeah,
you.
pre-pandemic, there is a healer, Alicia Brachet, in Australia that I love. We've been friends for a very long time, and we used to get together once a month. And she does these beautiful guided kind of activations. They're way deeper than a meditation, but she's very galactic. So what I would do is I would constellate, different galactic beings or whatever the theme was for that
Right.
month. I would be the proxy, do the constellation, and then we would get on a Zoom with people that were joining us and work on that. So yeah, so that's the cool thing about the field too, is the field isn't limited to your family system, because many of us have incarnated however many times, so we can put in anything. So yeah.
And we're stardust, right? We're part of
Yeah.
stardust. And
Yeah.
just to validate what you're saying, I worked in Australia for the very first time, 25 years ago, whatever it was. And it was a
Wow.
big auditorium, like 12,000. It was a major stadium. And I remember the kind of questions they were asking the audience that you people are not from here. You are such
Yeah.
star people. It's beyond my awareness. But you people in
Yeah.
Australia are your own star system. And I really, so as you're saying, aren't
I
they?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm always asking her, because I always tell people she is like the galactic version of me. But I'm like, Australia is its own planet. I am
It's true.
convinced.
It's
Yeah,
so true.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
really true.
Oh my gosh.
And okay, go
Here's a
ahead,
good
Kev.
question. Does the grief process line up with family constellations? Grief is exhausting. Is that lined into families?
Absolutely. So that is, honestly, I think grief is one of the big kind of players that kinks the hose, because if
Mm,
grandma has a stillborn at 16, 17, back then everybody was getting married young, doesn't talk about it, then it skips your parents' generation, and then the grandkids typically will wake up and start to feel that grief. So I think there is a lot of grief in family systems. I know there was a lot in mine that can be linked to addiction and some of those other coping mechanisms.
Right.
but it's such an issue of
Yeah.
learning as well. Grief really, it's a subject that we learn from. It's an amazing teacher, grief,
Yeah.
depending on how you handle it and how it presents itself and what you do with it. It's one of those great teachers, whatever we can learn to do with it. Like losing a child. Wow, you learn a lot from that. It's one of the hardest lessons I think humans can go through. But grief in all different types of ways, definitely lessons that we have to learn the different types of grief.
I told Kelly I lost my dad unexpectedly in 2021, and then subsequently in a 9-month period, so many people died. It was literally just like 4, 5, 6 at one, and just one after the other. But losing my dad was deeply traumatic for me. And I told Kelly, I was like, oh my God, everything I thought I knew about grief, and I'm a deeply feeling, deeply compassionate person, I knew zero.
Right.
I knew,
Until
like,
that moment, you don't know.
you don't know.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I
true.
feel like I did a
It's true.
master class with his soul from the other side.
You
walking
did,
through
Carrie.
grief.
That was a really,
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
really a
yeah.
rough time.
It was not fun. Thank you for
Yeah.
not giving up on me. Yeah.
No. I
Well,
knew you were going through a lot.
I mean, I did the work I started to do the work for a little bit when I first started, and I lost my mother. And people can tell you,
Mm.
and I was, when a mother dies, blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, they can tell you certain things. You're gonna have expectations. You can get ready for it, but when a mother does or a father,
Yeah.
things happen you didn't expect. Even if you're doing this work as a medium or a spiritual healer,
or a therapist,
things,
it
or a
doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
It's
matter.
it's like you're hit by a side of it, the train. Like
Yeah. Well, I think what happens, James, is that energy, that's the connection, whether it's a good connection or a bad, that energy is like pulled out from you.
Yeah.
And for me, the pain and suffering was just unreal of the pulling out of this energy.
And that's Carrie. That's very true, don't you think? I mean, it'd be really interesting to ask you this question because I know when my sister and my brother passed, a little different. But and Kelly, you just talked to your mom when she passed over. There's part of your soul, I think, that goes with them.
Yeah.
Do
Oh,
you think that's
totally.
part of that DNA or part of that constellation?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Kind of that part of that soul group, James. I mean, it's just that part.
Yeah. I was, dare I say, lucky. He was a Leo. He was big. He was intuitive. He came within 24 hours of dying and came every day for that first year. I had a dream about him every day for the first 12 months.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know that I've ever been more grateful because I know that part of me went with him, and I feel like he helped keep me here, So yeah, I had never been more grateful for my gifts, to be honest, and I feel like it really deepened my work.
Wow. Yeah. Does the generational trauma settle in our bodies as an illness or pain that can be released with FCT, like a form of somatic therapy? Great question, Renee.
Absolutely. I got a really cool email on Saturday from somebody that did a constellation last month that has a ton of physical health ailments, and she was having a hard time walking and like being mobile, and she was up and about, and like it can absolutely release things in the body, especially if you notice in the family system, if you start kind of doing a little kind of mental math around different health issues, it can absolutely be released in the physical body.
Wow. Lisa Jesmusian asked a great question. Can you speak about wartime genocide? For example, my ancestors survived the Armenian genocide and Holocaust. What kind of trauma is carried with those experiences?
Wow, what a full question.
Thank you, Lisa. Great question.
Yes,
great
thank you, Lisa. So I, for some reason, attract a ton of Armenian genocide and Holocaust trauma. It's probably the two things, and maybe that was just a product of being in LA, but it's the two things I work on the most. And so it absolutely affects future generations. So it can be a lot of addiction. I see it sometimes deeply affect relationships and intimacy. So, multiple divorces in future generations, a lot of survival energy, hypervigilance, things like that. But war trauma, genocide trauma absolutely affects. It can affect food, if there was like rationed food or starvation, that kind of thing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How it shows itself in other generations and how it comes out in form. It's just amazing to me. And I just think it's amazing.
Wow. Robert Monroe asks a question, is there a shared death experience?
A shared death experience, like in family systems?
I don't know.
Maybe generations, like suicides we talked about, or maybe there's being killed, or maybe one generation had this, another generation had similar experiences, maybe, Robert means?
Yeah. So if that's what you mean, Robert, that's a great question. So I always tell people kind of track the ages. So if somebody dies at 32, then the next generation, there will either be a trauma. Sometimes it can be death, or it can be like a divorce or the loss of money or a house, but track the ages.
Wait, Carrie and I had a situation once. Do you remember this? No, wait.
I love this. I'll tell you in a second why, but yeah, go on.
Carrie and I had a situation. I had a client that I sent to Carrie that I didn't know that his uncle had died at 32. Is that about right? Is that the story?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And Carrie starts working with this client, and then you did not know, and I didn't know. You said something about the names. If you carry the names on, and you said, "What was your uncle's name?" I think it was a great uncle. I think who had died, and his name was the name that he was named after. His namesake. Wow. And I remember that it was mind blowing because of this accident, and it was a huge deal.
Yeah,
when people have the same names that they're carried on in the family tradition.
I've heard that before, Kelly. Yeah. You find that a lot, Carrie, in your work? The names continue on?
I find don't name your baby after somebody that suffered a
Well,
difficult
and
fate.
that's what happened with this situation. If you remember who it was, yeah.
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 So it's like if somebody died young. I had a client years ago that was referred by her therapist and told me this kind of just casual story of the grandmother had tried to kill herself because the husband had cheated on her, but the grandma did it in a very specific way. So then we're just talking, doing intake, and I think the grandma was 33, and the suicide was successful. And then my client was like, "Oh yeah, at 33, I tried to kill myself, and I did this, and this." It was the exact same story, and the story was so
Yeah.
specific that I like echoed it back to her, and it literally, you saw the click in her brain of like, oh my god, it was the same exact story. So we'll just
Well,
kind
it's
of play
weird to
out
say.
that trauma.
It's weird, but I know someone who's had wow, their grandmother or the great grandmother killed herself in a certain room in a house at a certain time with a gun. Next generation, 2 generations later, that mother went in that room, killed herself exactly at the same time with a gun, and then it happened to the last generation, exact
Oh
same
my
thing. And it
Wow.
gosh.
repeated itself.
Wow.
And one didn't know about the other generation. I mean, the girl recently knew about her grandmother, but the other one didn't know. But it was just exact same time, exact same way, exact same room in this
Wow.
house. So it did repeat itself. And what you were saying earlier when I said you're funny, you're weird, which is 100 great. When I say weird, it's a good thing. I've heard, and Kelly, maybe you have. I've heard that, and I don't know. This is just a hypothesis I throw at you, that a soul that many times, and I'm going to something else. Let's say at age 34. All of a sudden you feel really weird at 34. You get very ill or something happens, or maybe there's a throat thing that happens or an illness. And I have found, and I don't know what you both of you think, that sometimes that soul or their family members, that in other lifetimes at the age of 34, someone hung themselves or someone else killed themselves in the throat or got sliced, or that there's a repeat in the field, if you will, of that
Yeah.
time period. Have you heard anything like that in the type of work that you do? Or Kelly, have you heard anything about something like that?
I
That
know
there's
exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about. You
Yeah.
bet. And that
Yeah.
absolutely can happen, James. I mean, the
Yeah.
energy of that is
the
there.
energy, yeah, I guess would
Mhm.
be the energy, that same
Yeah.
time period
Yeah.
kind of thing. Whoops, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very
That makes
interesting.
so much sense. Yeah.
So
Wow.
wild. It's wild. It's
I know, it's so fun. It's so
yeah.
Oh
fun.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. James, guess what? Carrie and I, we are going to be doing something in June
Are
together.
you?
So
Carrie
excited.
and
Yeah.
Dr. Shirley and Pellizzeri and me, the three of us, are in the Give
And this
of
is the
Life
first time hearing
retreat.
about it? Wait a
It's
minute.
the first time you're here. Please come and join us, honey. It's
Oh,
going to be
yeah, I'd
great.
love
Oh,
to.
It's going to be in
Oh, in
Burbank at our
Burbank.
hotel, that
Oh,
fabulous
I'll come up
hotel.
and I'll come out and hang out with you guys. You
Bring
betcha.
Pearl. Bring
I'll bring
Pearl.
Pearl. You
Oh
bet.
my
I
gosh. I
will.
mean, if
Pearl.
Carrie's gonna be doing a family constellation. It's a 3-day event, and you're gonna be doing a family constellation
yes,
and
yes.
working
And
with
it's
everybody.
so wonderful. We're going to have breakout groups and like get small groups so people will get one-on-one personal attention.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love working with you and Dr. Shirley. I think it's brilliant to go in the 3 different angles.
Well, it really is. And Shirley she's wonderful. She's
Yeah.
gonna be doing mind-body awareness, and she's gonna be doing shadow work. So that's going to be amazing. And I'm going to be doing mediumship, and I'm going to be talking about spirituality and
Well,
doing readings for everybody that
why don't I
come.
come up and do a healing meditation?
Oh,
Yes.
honey, would you do that?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I'd
love
be more
that.
happy
That
to.
would be so
I'll
great.
string it all along
So
and do a healing
fun.
meditation
We
for
would
everyone.
love that.
Oh,
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
It'd
that'd be so
fun.
fun. Would
So is it
love
a
it.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday,
Yeah,
Friday,
June 20th, 21st, and 22nd
23rd?
and 3rd,
Okay.
ending on the 23rd. And guess what we're going to do at the end, James? We're going to go to Shauna's crystal shop, and we're going to have
We had your book signing.
we did have
Oh,
the book
it's the
signing, but we're
best.
going to have like a cocktail hour.
Oh, maybe with aesthetic dancing.
I think that would be fun. Whatever you want to do, Shauna is open to all of it. I am sure would be
Oh,
great.
that's great.
So
That's
fun.
great. That'll be great, you guys. Yeah,
Yeah. So
wonderful.
tell us, and you guys, you have something coming up in Maui. You have a couple big things coming up.
Yeah, my thing, May 9th, I'm going to be in Encinitas where I live, actually, in San Diego, and I'm doing an open event, a live for the Seaside Center for Spiritual Living, and that's on May 9th. It's a Friday, so I'm doing a live demonstration there, which It's the only second one I'm doing this year.
Wow.
So that's
It's a great
fun
place.
selling.
It's a
Wow.
great place.
Right.
If you guys want to come and see James do a reading live, it's a fabulous place. I've been there many
Fabulous
times with
place.
you. It's a
Man,
wonderful
yeah,
place.
that's fantastic. And then
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
also doing
Judy Friedman will be there. Yay, Judy.
oh, good,
Hi,
Judy.
Judy.
Yay, Judy. Judy, we went around the world with Judy.
We sure did.
That's great. And then I'm doing a retreat in Maui in July with my friend Sue White, who's an incredible
Oh.
healer. So we have like 10 spaces open. It's limited to 20 people. And that's happening in Maui in July. So it's healing of body, mind, and spirit. And we're going to work on those issues.
We're going to work on those issues. Wait, I have to give a shout out to Lisa Jamuzian. I have to tell you, Lisa, yes, I had a great time at A Beautiful Noise yesterday. And yes, I got to go back and meet Lisa Renee Pitts, who played my mother. And it was wonderful. And we also got to go back and see who was playing Don, my husband Don.
That's
So
right.
that was really
I love
fun,
that.
Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. It was your idea, and I really appreciate it, Lisa. It was great.
Right.
That was really fun. It was such a fun night. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And then I also have a crystal class coming up. I do. I have a crystal class on April 26th. And with Julianne Siegel, and you know
We
Julianne.
love Julianne.
We
Yeah,
love
love
Julianne. It's
She's
going to be so
great.
much fun. We're going to talk about crystals and feng shui, and it's going to be a great class, a 2-hour class, but please come and join us with that. And then I have a class with Prajna Avalon on autism. So if you are interested at all, or if you know somebody who's interested, please send them our way, because we're really going to power people up with spiritual guidance and practical tools for navigating life with autism.
What date is that,
Oh, I
Kelly?
love
That is April 5th. April 5th.
That's
It's a
coming up.
3-hour. It's coming up. So please join us.
Good information. Good
Yeah,
subjects.
really
Yeah.
good information. And
Oh, there
Carrie,
you
you
go.
have something important, Carrie, coming up.
Share, Carrie, share.
I do. I'm so excited. So on Valentine's Day, I launched a membership called the Legacy of Love Collective. And we have been having so much fun. It's been so beautiful and healing. We had our first group constellation last Wednesday. And so each month we do a group constellation together, and groups are different than one-on-ones. I had a client today that was in the membership last week, and she was like, it was so healing to be with other people and be in that collective energy. But we have guest speakers. I call them magic makers. I would love you guys to be on. So we have Mark Edgar Stevens on April 10th doing past life regression. He's going to lead us through a little regression.
Wow.
You get daily little messages from spirit. There's a ton of guided meditations and journals. We have a learning library, which is my favorite. I love to learn guidebooks. It was everything I needed when I was healing that was not available. So I bring down.
It's how it works out, Carrie. It's how it works
Sure
out.
does.
And how would they find that? It's on your website?
It's on my website. It's just at the top of the homepage. Join the subscription. You scroll down to the bottom, you can join. We'd love to have you. It's so fun. Yeah, I just love FCT so much.
Great. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much once again for being with
So
us.
happy you were here
Sharing
tonight,
space.
Carrie. Yay.
Really.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun to be with you guys again. I've missed you.
Wonderful to have you
Yeah.
always. And Kelly, thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you as usual.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next
All right.
time.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.